Good? So let's take a good posture and with respect and friendliness from your basic goodness on up, let's give it away. So welcome to Walk the Talk Show. It's a podcast and video series. And thank you to our sponsor, Clean Canteen, with ELE30. You can go to their website and get 30% off. That's an offer thanks to them to all of our readers and listeners. So I feel sometimes like I have the unpleasant, unwelcome job of talking about things that nobody cares about. I'm not talking about the Kardashians. I'm not talking about Desperate Housewives or CSI or, the coolest show on HBO or how to get discounts off of Amazon. I'm talking about boring, beautiful, wonderful things that I care about and that many of us care about if we know about them, which we may not. One of them is the death of journalism, is the death of news, is the rise of viral. So, as an example that I know we all care about because we all participated in it, a couple months ago, it went viral that the Amazon forest was on fire. Everyone shared about it. Everyone was upset. And by shared about it, I mean shared stories or read stories, read posts, commented, mostly on Instagram at that time. What really pissed me off at that time was that one person I saw said, the media is not talking about this. People love to blame the media. The media often does suck these days because, like any business, it relies on money that we're not paying it because probably none of us subscribe, or very few of us subscribe to our local newspaper or any quality journalism. I subscribe to New Yorker, New York Times. I highly recommend them. I generally subscribe to Washington Post and to Relephant, of course. But, we all pay for TV. We all pay for, we're all giving our time, which is even more expensive, to Instagram, which is owned by Facebook, WhatsApp, which is owned by Facebook, actually was partially responsible for the election of Bolsonaro, who said he would basically allow the burning down of the Amazon and encourage it. And media has reported on that well before he was elected. And even today, it's on the front page of the New York Times today about what's happening. And yet we, at least young people I'm around, we only notice when it goes viral on Instagram. And viral, I want to just talk about that word for a second. It is not a good word. Viral. It doesn't sound like a good word. It doesn't pretend to be a good word. It's basically what happens when a disease moves incredibly quickly, right? It's viral. So maybe it's a cool word when you're talking about something important like the Amazon burning. Do you want that to go viral, that news? Most people would say yes. I would say no. I would say journalism, which is boring by comparison. I just watched this documentary on Pete Hamill and Jimmy Breslin, who I actually didn't know about. But they were some of the leading journalists in New York City. They were famous at the time, nationally famous. Journalism used to be what we all read, and we could all agree on common facts. And local journalism, every city had multiple newspapers. And none of this is about paper. Who cares? I'm not a nostalgic person in that sense. What I'm nostalgic for is truth, compassion, and community. And you can't have community when Fox News viewers have one set of facts about the impeachment and liberals or anyone reading or watching journalism have a different set of facts. You can't make any progress on climate change. You can't support, say, small businesses. Everything that we love is getting gutted because we're dependent on viral, because we're giving all of our power and all of our attention, which is the same thing, because attention is monetized by the powerful, by the greedy, by 6 people who control most information of what any of us see today. 6 people. So that's even worse than what Bernie Sanders loves to rant and rave about, which is the 1%. This is like the 1% of 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 the 1%. 6 people. So these are the heads of Google, Facebook, Google owns YouTube, Facebook owns WhatsApp and Instagram, and a couple other companies, and I did a blog about that on Elephant Journal. Elephant, for example, is one of those rare beasts, no pun intended, that has survived so far. It may be endangered in some ways, but it's strong, independent media. And while we don't do a lot of journalism, we do care about the truth, and we don't allow total fake news lying on Elephant, other than astrology. So this is just a reminder. I think honestly, local news is already dead. There's almost no point to subscribe. Unless you're in a major city, there's still some good newspapers. If you are, subscribe, please, and read them, please. Here in Boulder, the Daily Camera, which was independent when I was a kid, which isn't that long ago, has been bought and sold, I think, like 4 or 5 times by major corporations that are just gutting it. Killed the Rocky Mountain News, gutting the Post. These major corporations are just buying up newspapers, gutting them, laying off great journalists. There are thousands and thousands of journalists who used to report on what was happening in your community. So as one journalist who is now a city councilor in Denver said, this is a golden age for corruption. If you want to get away with murder, if you want to pollute the water of a town, if you want to exploit people, there's never been a better time in at least the last 100, 200 years than now to do that, because there's so little insight and reporting happening. So if you are in a major city, do subscribe to the Denver Post, to the New York Times. If you're in New York or really anywhere, they've become a national, international paper, to the LA Times, to the San Francisco Chronicle. But many of them have already been half-gutted, and that's where it gets complicated, is that would I encourage someone to subscribe to the Daily Camera? Maybe, but when I came back in 99, they had half the staff they'd had 10 years before. They couldn't do a very good job. Now, they have maybe 1/10 of the staff covering that half of the staff's job. So meaning, I said that badly, but so few people. I think they had one writer who I knew covering 4 different areas, like business, entertainment, politics, and whatever else, local culture or something. They had one reporter, whereas just 2 decades before they'd had 20, 30 reporters. So there's very little insight into what's happening. What happens when you have very little insight into the truth of what's happening? Everything becomes Twitter. Everything becomes opinion. Everything becomes anger, extreme rhetoric. You only can elect extreme politicians. And our countries descend into nationalism, into anti-immigrant, anti-minority, into vilifying other, whatever the other is. We're seeing that with Modi in India. One of the world's great democracies is now mostly collapsed into a Trump-like nationalistic and incredibly racist and sexist and religiousist, anti-Muslim state. And guess who they've been targeting? Guess who they've been jailing? Guess who they've been killing? Guess who they've been silencing? Journalists. Journalists are the canary in the gold mine. You want to look at a healthy and society and know if it's healthy or unhealthy? Just look at how they treat their journalists. So I want to remind us to not idolize basketball players, to idolize journalists. Watch this documentary of Pete Hamill and Jimmy Breslin. And in 2019, we have this amazing opportunity that we've had in the last 10, 20 years where journalism could be diverse. It could be dominated by women, it could be dominated by minorities. It no longer has to be a white man game. And instead of taking advantage of that opportunity for diversity, we're opening up Instagram 50 times a day. So it's really on us to reverse that. So find a way to encourage facts, regard for science. Science is not perfect by its nature. It's always testing itself and testing new possibilities, but respect the facts of science. Look for journalism and read journalists. Don't really support things that are partisan or that have a too heavy of a point of view. You want basically facts, and then opinion needs to be transparently identified. Thank you so much, and I hope some of you found that boringness to be super inspiring and romantic and wonderful. And the so-called entertainment that we have today, I hope you can see that as boring and awful, and you know, let's not all get sick from the virality of what's happening today. Thank you. Let's take a good posture and give it away with a bow. And thank you again to Clean Canteen, our mindful sponsor. You can get Elephant Mindful Manifesto mug on our website, and avoid to-go cups forever, as long as you remember it mindfully. And you can also go to cleancanteen.com and use code ELA30, ELE30, for 30% off. Thank you.